Hi everyone, I'm Anna Swartz. I'm the Alumni Liaison and the Faculty Administrative Assistant at the School of Management. Today we have 3 alumni here to give you some college and career advice. Let's get started. So Kylie Johnston graduated from the University of Michigan-Flint School of Management in 2019. She majored in organizational behavior and human resource management and received the Outstanding Student Award in her graduating class. While on campus, Kylie participated in the Society of Human Resource Management chapter and attended Michigan HR Day in Lansing. Upon graduation, Kylie accepted a role at Shift Digital in Birmingham, Michigan, and continues to work there as a HR generalist. Next, we have Laura Bell, is a 2016 graduate from the University of Michigan-Flint. She majored in accounting and minored in Spanish. Laura worked as a staff accountant for Lewis and Knopf CPAs for 6 years following college. In this position, she was involved in filing tax returns for individuals, for-profit businesses, and for nonprofit organizations. She was also responsible for audit preparations, bookkeeping, and marketing for the firm. Laura has now transitioned out of public accounting with her role as senior accountant for Fessler and Bowman. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with family and friends, being outdoors, reading, and being involved in music ministry. And lastly, we have Fabian Haywood, is the current Director of Development for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Flint and Genesee County. He's an entrepreneur and a Flint native. He graduated with an MBA from UM-Flint in December of 2021. He is the owner of Haywood Property Management, which focuses on long and short-term residential rentals. He is also developing a product called Eats Station, which was the winning idea pitched at the Pitch for K competition in January of this year. He is fueled by cultivating opportunities for his family and mentors, and he looks forward to creating more economic opportunities in Flint for the future and traveling all over the world. Welcome, guys. Any students that have questions for after their bio, just let me know, put it in the chat if you're more interested in what they're pursuing and what they're doing. So Fabian, we'll start with you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any advice you would like to provide students as they approach graduation and prepare for future careers?
Listen, everyone, I did not prepare a long answer for this. I just want to thank everybody for coming and being here. As it relates to graduating and, looking for a job, my general advice is to cast a wide net as it relates to what you're searching for. Use your network and ask a lot of questions. And depending on where you are in life, if you're a little bit entry level or if you have more experience, well, I guess this is specifically for if you have more experience, be a little bit uncompromising as it relates to what you accept, and focus on what it is that you really want to do that will either help you to grow to be who you want to be, or that will make you happier in your personal life.
Thanks, Fabian. Laura?
Hello. That was great what you said, Fabian. I would kind of go along the same lines of just using all the resources you possibly can as you're finishing up college. Make all those networking connections, use your LinkedIn, and take advantage of everything that the school is offering. That's one thing I wish I would have done more, not just in my last year, but throughout college, of not just going to work, going to school, going to work, going to school, but really taking advantage of all I could.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, I think my answer is kind of a fusion of the two. My personal experience, similar to kind of what Fabian was talking about, was that when I was applying for jobs upon graduating, I was pretty intentional, but also, like he said, kind of casting that net at the same time. There's actually a point where I was in the final stages of the recruiting process and knew deep down in my gut that this wasn't the right role for me. And it was a really kind of hard pill for me to swallow, knowing deep down that this just wasn't the right experience, but I trusted my gut in that. Ended up finding another opportunity, which is where I'm at now. 3 years later, as Anna mentioned, at Shift Digital. I actually started there as an intern. That was also another hard pill for me to swallow, having my degree and being ready to step out into the real working world. And, now I have this title of an intern, as I'm seeing all my friends have their more, professional associate type of titles. So don't let that discourage you. I think that I'm obviously successful in where I am now and happy that I took that step or accepted that title for me, even though it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to see. I also got connected with my opportunity, like Laura had mentioned, through LinkedIn. I had a connection, someone that I had worked with previously, just in a customer service type of role, and she was able to make the introduction for me with the recruiter for that opportunity.
Great, thank you. Back to you, Fabian. What are some helpful resources you use on campus? Are career fairs helpful? If you did attend a career fair, what would you suggest how students prepare for one?
I did attend a couple of career fairs. How should you prepare? There are opportunities for you to do like mock interviews, just so that you can be prepared on how to answer a question so that you're not stuttering through the questions like I might do in this presentation. Another helpful tool that I was introduced to was Handshake. I got a lot of job offers via Handshake, so I recommend that to you.
Thank you. Laura?
I enjoyed whenever there were opportunities like this that we could get that real life connection with what we were learning. And, you know, when alumni would come to classrooms and things like that, career fairs, I do agree with what Fabian's saying. And research the businesses that are going to be there that interest you. Know something about them. If they have 3 locations, already know that going in, so that kind of helps you stand out and you're not asking a question that they're thinking, okay, they on the whim just came to see if we might like to hear from them. I actually got my my job at Lewis and Off from going to the career fair that was in March. And I did have a family member that told me ahead of time, hey, have you thought about Lewis and Off? So then I researched them. I went to them at the career fair, and in June or July or so is when I started my position. So
Great. Kylie?
I actually, to be completely transparent, never attended a career fair while at UM-Flint or throughout my college experience in general. But interestingly enough, being on the other side in HR, I actually participated in my first career fair as an employer earlier this year. It wasn't at UM-Flint, but I think one of my rules of advice or rule of thumb would be, as crazy as this sounds, is to bring a resume. There were a lot of people who attended, and I'm sure UM-Flint does a great job at nailing that down, of being prepared, having your resume or cover letter, but also really working on your elevator pitch or having some sort of icebreaker as well. I'll say, as an employer, it is also a little bit awkward and nerve-wracking at times where there's that barrier between you and the student or you and the employer, and you're not sure how to navigate that. We're all people at the end of the day. So, you know, it doesn't always have to be super professional and buttoned up. I think in today's age, it's a little bit more relaxed. And I think that's really the fun in it too. So being able to just make conversation and then slowly transition into potentially talking about careers, your background, your experience, etc. But that would be some advice that I would have.
Great, thank you. Fabian, how did UM-Flint help you prepare for your job and your field?
It helped me prepare because I think the most impactful thing is that every course has a group assignment. And when I was told that in orientation, that was probably the worst thing I heard because I hate group assignments. However, your communication and your network can be the biggest difference between, you know, how successful you are as a business person. Whether you're negotiating contracts or developing relationships, you're required to communicate effectively and be socially confident. So that was the best thing I experienced that helped me today.
Thank you. Laura?
I would say that, you know, there's a few classes like going into accounting, there's a class called Accounting Information Systems. I didn't love everything about that class, but QuickBooks was introduced in that class. I already had experience because I didn't mention it in the bio, but I worked at a local accounting firm for 3 years during my college too. So I already kind of knew how to use QuickBooks, but if I hadn't had that experience, I would have felt like a fish out of water to jump in following college. Operations management was also a good one because it forces you to think outside the box and have a creative mind, which is very valuable when you find an employer, someone that believes in you and wants those advice, you know, the ideas rather to help make things better. And then audit was a class that really helped me prepare for my first CPA exam.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, a couple of courses for me come to mind in terms of being successful within the field that I took at UM-Flint. The first one, which Jerry, you may have led, I can't recall, it was a developing negotiations where you would act out the different scenarios. I remember going into that first scenario and I put all of my cards out on the table. Like I was the perfect example of what not to do, but it was the first time we were doing it. And that moment, I think of that to this day. Like it was such an awesome example of kind of fostering what that would look like. And I remember feeling so awkward going into it, walked back to the classroom, probably feeling a bit shameful with my tail between my legs. And I was the example in class of like, this is what you shouldn't do. But that skill set of not necessarily putting all your cards out there on the table when negotiating and just having some of those skill sets in conversation is super important. So that was a really great class. Also, change management was another one that I think about to this day. We read a book called Switch. And I want to say Professor Hagerman led that one for me. And I refer back to that book to this day, just as we're going through change in HR, and businesses go through changes all the time, whether it's implementing a new system, a new process, et cetera. So that was a really tactile skill that I was able to take with me as well.
Thanks, Kylie. Fabian, what are some of your most proudest moments from UM-Flint?
Honestly, in general, my most proud moment was when I finished. To be really transparent, I had really high anxiety coming into grad school because my undergraduate experience, let's just say there were a lot of growing pains. And I didn't want to replicate that experience in grad school. And so I was really proud that that I finished and that I had learned so much and developed my network. I'm also proud at the way that the university transitioned into a virtual curriculum, because when I was in grad school, COVID had just began. And so I was grateful to have a virtual curriculum and that it was still engaging, and the negotiations courses that Kylie is referencing were still very impactful and kind of prepared me for what I'm experiencing now, virtual meetings like this. So,
Laura?
That's kind of a hard question. I mean, I was thankful to be on, high or highest honors throughout. But I would say that my proudest moment with UM-Flint was being able to come back and speak at an honors night for the School of Management. That kind of brought it full circle for me to share my journey with the CPA exam, because CPAs or aspiring CPAs are hoping they pass the first time, and that doesn't always happen. So I was thankful, and to this day, I love that I was able to do that and give back to the community in that way.
Thank you. Kylie?
I would say I was most proud of my involvement in the SHRM chapter, Society of Human Resource Management chapter at UM-Flint. I was able to lead a presentation to a group of School of Management students about having a strong LinkedIn profile to be able to attract recruiters, and then also tactics on how to reach out to recruiters or network with some of your connections. So that was a really great opportunity. Even as a student, I think I was in my final semester as a senior, was able to share out about my experience, as I had previously in my internship had the opportunity to work with some representatives from LinkedIn directly on that.
Great, thank you. Fabian, what advice would you give a student interested in your career? And to go more in depth, I'm thinking like, did you do anything, more besides just your classes? Did you do anything on your own to kind of, get into the career you're in, or did you do any trainings or anything more besides just going to class?
Well, I didn't do anything formal prior to becoming the development director. However, I've been a mentor in this program for over 5 years. So I am extremely passionate about mentorship, just because a lot of the mentors in my life helped shape me and get me here. And so I'm really passionate about returning that favor to youth in our community. So that was the primary factor that landed me this job, was that I was already involved with the program and very familiar with the mission and practicing that on a daily basis before I even knew that I wanted to work here.
What would you say students might need to know to be a director? Like, what kind of skills should they really hone in?
Develop social skills, learn how to be personable. There's a lot of networking involved with development. I would also say learn how my supervisor, Lisa Humphrey, she says, don't work in a silo. So you have to learn how to multitask and kind of pivot because there's a lot of things drawing your attention.
Thank you. Laura?
For accounting, I would say, you know, find an internship or get an entry-level job if possible throughout college. I didn't really understand what I do until I had that experience from day to day. The debits and credits clicked when I was posting journal entries and seeing that my ending balance didn't agree. So it kind of helped me to understand them better, but also it looks so much better when you come out of college and you can say to that firm or that company, hey, I have worked in accounting already a little bit. And that'll kind of help you with that position. Also, don't be afraid to dive into Excel in whatever classes that may be that are requiring you to use it, because I use Excel a whole lot in my job.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, something that my current supervisor always says in the HR field is we are never afraid to sit down and have to file, right? I feel like HR sometimes has a stigma that you're just pushing paper all day. And that's sometimes what a lot of entry-level roles can entail, where it is filing or some more of that admin type of work where it might not necessarily be as strategic, but that's really where I got started, was being able to provide support to a greater HR team. And although I may have felt in that moment not necessarily as important, or how was my role really fitting into the greater picture, but I was able to see that over time, and those skills are super important. I also think there's a lot of different entry-level types of roles that translate into a multitude of different fields, but more specifically HR, whether that be customer service experience, communication, being detail-oriented, organized, problem solving, literally just like running down the list of different skills, they're all extremely important. So whether you're working some sort of restaurant job or fast food job, there's so many different skills there that can translate over into a lot of the different opportunities that are available. It's just really being able to speak to that and kind of hone in on that on your resume as well.
Thank you. We already touched base with a little bit of this, but Fabian, what were some of your favorite classes?
Negotiations for sure, because it lit a fire in me. Like Kylie, I had a similar experience where I did not make the best deal, and that stuck with me through the whole semester. Every negotiation after that, I was determined to get the best deal. And other than that, accounting, I didn't do so well. I didn't have the best experience in undergrad, and I was just grateful to perform very well when I was in grad school. So,
Laura?
I would say operations management. I enjoyed that because, again, I love thinking outside the box. And one of our projects was long story short, the employer I had at the time during college allowed me to do the project and give ideas on how to change things up in the office, even with layout, to make it be more user-friendly and maybe more efficient, things like that. So I love that hands-on approach. And I love that following that semester, my day-to-day was different because of it. And then I really enjoyed my audit class with Professor Roz Novachelski. She's not at U of M anymore, but it was just an amazing class, and I felt so prepared coming out of it.
Thank you. Kylie?
I know we already touched on a little bit the negotiations. I also mentioned the change management course as well. Another one that comes to mind, I think that was just interesting to me and really kind of sparked a light bulb for me to continue to stay on top of just the ever-changing law and how that applies to HR. So I want to say the course was some sort of HR law or labor management within the HR field, but really interesting just to take a deeper dive into some of the issues that may come up within the industry. Like I said, things are always changing, whether that's in the state, across the United States, across different states, internationally as well. So that class really kind of, like I said, put the puzzle pieces together for me to understand that things are always changing and that different problems can arise, and just staying on top of some of those different challenges.
Thank you. Fabian, can you describe your typical day at work?
There is no day that is the same here at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I can start a day training new volunteers or coordinating an event or developing marketing materials. There's absolutely no day since I've been in this position that has been the same. And so that's why I go back to that original advice of not working in a silo. You have to be able to pivot and you have to be able to kind of think on your feet sometimes and communicate effectively. So no, I can't, unfortunately. There's no day that's the same.
That's okay. Laura?
Okay, so my days aren't the same, but working in private accounting, I'm at a concrete company, Fessler Bowman. There's typical tasks that I know have to be done on Monday or be done on Thursday. And it kind of revolves around when management needs reports. So we know specifically on Thursdays, we have to give them a certain report. Or payroll, reviewing things with payroll. We know when our payroll department typically is running those reports. But I like what Fabian is saying, you have to have an open mind to your schedule. You'll be so stressed out if you start with your to-do list and you're not able to get to everything that day. A lot of times things get moved because, hey, now we need to spend time researching something, or now management needs a different report that we don't normally give. So, but it's typically, I can start when I want. We're flexible here. So they've kind of asked that time that I preferred. And it's very managing your own schedule and things like that when it comes to my day.
Thanks. Kylie?
My day-to-day is also very different. I feel like I'm getting pulled not only in a million directions from other employees that I'm supporting, but also just my day-to-day tasks as well. Some of the things that I work on include recruiting, onboarding, offboarding, benefits, payroll. I feel like the list goes on and on. Things change on a monthly basis, just in the season that we're in. Is it open enrollment? Are we doing performance reviews? Are we, working with managers? So each day truly is different, but really encompassing, I feel like, the full field of HR. And I think, like Fabian had mentioned, don't be siloed. Having a really broad skill set and being pulled in all of these different directions, as overwhelming as it might be at times, and as your to-do list may continue to grow, or you might not accomplish those things, as Laura had mentioned, you're only strengthening yourself over time to be able to really kind of hone in on some of those different areas.
Thank you. Fabian, the next one's for you. I don't know if you've ever been in the hiring position or not, but maybe in your own experience, what are some do's and don'ts of resumes and interviewing?
I have not. I've only hired one employee since I've been in this role. One thing that I learned is that, or that I would say, is don't be overly ambitious. I think that a lot of the times we go into interviews and we're trying to sell ourselves. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that we're human and look at those interviews as opportunities to negotiate and be realistic about what you expect and what is expected of you as an employee.
Thank you. Laura?
I have not been involved in the hiring process. I have been involved on the career fair side with hearing students. I would say have questions ready for that interviewer. What kind of benefits do they have? What is the schedule like? Just have something ready that you actually care about, because if not, when you leave that interview, you may be thinking, man, I wish I would have known this. I wish I could have asked this question. And typically they may say, hey, here's our email if you have any questions. And then make sure that you have good things to say about your previous employer too. Because if you're transitioning, it doesn't need to be burning a bridge. It shouldn't be. That's not professional. So just kind of move on with a smile and keep it on good terms.
Thanks. Kylie?
Yeah, this is something that I live and breathe every day. I feel like I could talk about this for hours. I think it's super important, like Laura had mentioned, to have those questions prepared. I'm still surprised to this day when I'm phone screening for entry-level positions that the candidates at the end of the call say, yeah, no questions, nothing else that I'm interested or want to inquire about. And to me, that always just leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, even if it's just, what's your favorite part of the role? How long have you been at the company? What's the structure of the team? Just give me something. I'm always just, asking for a little bit to provide some insight. That's really where you're able to showcase some of your interest in the role. I feel like I already touched on this a little bit as well, but there are so many different roles that even if you think your specific skill set or title or responsibilities may not transfer into that next step or your career path, really being able to draw and speak to what you were doing. If you were working as a cashier, I wasn't just checking people out. I was working, quantify it too. I was working with 100 customers per day, helping them with their transactions, solving problems, really being able to kind of speak to those specific skill sets and draw that to the job description as well for what exactly they're looking for, and just come prepared with that for any conversations with recruiters along the way.
Thank you. Fabian, do you have any professional failures you would like to share and how you overcame the issue at hand?
Yes. So because there are so many responsibilities and the environment is very fast-paced, it's been difficult for me to communicate what I need help with because I just simply don't know what I don't know. However, I ask a lot of questions, and even if I feel I should already know the answer, I still ask the questions. I still pursue knowledge. I still try to put myself out there and be vulnerable in that sense, and not try to, as the director of development, try to think that I have to perform at a certain level, even if, I haven't been taught or prepared for it. Another thing that I do is I document my process now, because a lot of things are cyclical. And so it's going to happen again in a year or so. And if I know what I went through and what I've experienced now, then I can reference it next year when I do the same thing and make myself, better.
Great, thank you. Laura?
I appreciate that, Fabian. I agree with, I'll echo what he's saying, that when you do have things on the job that you have feedback on, take notes so you can learn from them. I've had to do that. But I'd say my greatest professional failure would have been during the CPA exam process. And I know this is redundant for you, Anna, but it takes 18 months for those of you that are in accounting. It takes 18 months to have those 4 pass exams. And if you miss, if you take longer than 18 months to pass all 4, your first score rolls off. So then you have to retake your first exam so that all of your scores are within 18 months. So it was retaking exams, and I got to 18 months and I didn't pass my last one by 1 point. So that was kind of a, it was, I don't want to say a rock bottom, but if you can get a rock bottom, that was it. There's a lot of family things that were going on. And my employer was very supportive. They were providing the resources I needed to take the exam, giving me those paid days off to take the exam. And I learned a lot about myself with being able to be determined and saying, hey, I'm gonna do it within the next 6 months now. I'm not gonna let my next one roll off. And just proving to myself that I could. So set your mind to whatever you can and just work at it.
Thanks, Laura. Kylie?
Yeah, I have something that comes to mind for a failure. It was with payroll. So definitely an issue that you don't want to have. I don't necessarily process payroll, but pulling reports that do deal with compensation and salary, and was doing some different calculations and simply just fat fingered and did a typo on the number that I was supposed to push, multiplying something, let's hypothetically say 2 times instead of 3 times. So it ended up being a case where it was undercompensated. So we were able to make up that mistake, but I was mortified. It was right when I had gotten started and had this task hand off to me. But now it was able for me to really just have that example of double checking, making sure that those formulas are correct in Excel, sharpening up on those skills, maybe having someone else take another look at it, especially if it is something that impacts a large group of people or is going to be published somewhere or processed broadly to a big group. But yeah, just a little bump in the road. Luckily, it wasn't too big. I had a great support system. My supervisor was very understanding and wasn't anything that ultimately was a big blow up type of moment.
Thank you, Kylie. Fabian, how do you practice work-life balance?
I'm sorry, one second. I need to reference my notes. Well, I work Monday through Thursday. So I'm extremely grateful to have Fridays off. I just started working out regularly, and I make time for my loved ones to remind me why I'm even working so hard. As I mentioned before, I am a mentor in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, but I also have younger brothers, and they're literally the reason why I'm even trying to excel at all. So that's kind of how I maintain work-life balance.
Thank you. Laura?
I would say for me, one of the big things when I was applying for another job was work-life balance. Like that was one of their questions in the interview. What do you care most about? And without a doubt, I have 2 kids. I'm very involved in my church, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on things that are important to me and I'm passionate about. So I was thankful to have Fessler Bowman be so flexible. I make sure I'm not missing anything. When they asked me what time I want to start, I told them I didn't try to push myself to do something I didn't want to do. And if you have an employer that doesn't require you to check emails or bring your work from home or whatever, leave it, leave it at home. Have that division from work to home, because I think if you are someone that works from home a lot, it can be very difficult to draw that line. I'm thankful I'm not in that position, so I just leave my computer at home. Leave my computer at my desk if need be, right? Yeah, I think that's how I try to manage it as best I can. It's been great.
I like that advice because I check my email 24/7 and it's on my phone, and I need to take the app off, but I don't know what it is, but I just want to be ready, want to check it all the time, and it's not good. But
it may not be popular, but I've cut off my work email on the weekends just so I wasn't, that's just me.
Yeah.
Monday typically.
Kylie?
Yeah, following that same sentiment, I was someone who would bring my laptop with me on vacation, and my employer that's something I truly value about where I work is they really put a big focus on work-life balance. I think it's more of just a personal crutch where I feel like, well, what if?
Yeah.
But it is something that I'm working on. I actually was on a vacation a couple of weeks ago and was able to leave my laptop at home personally, which was great. I do have my email on my phone. I find myself on the go. Maybe it's like an appointment here or there, which is also really great as well to have my company, respect that I also have a personal life outside of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But my big thing, and I think the first kind of baby step to working towards getting the email off the phone is turning off notifications. I don't have any notifications on my phone, so it's more so me actively checking when I have time or when I want to. But I think outside of that, I really enjoy reading. So that's something that I like to do even throughout the middle of the day as well, maybe on like my lunch or going out. Fresh air is also super important while you're working at home, or even if you're in an office as well, having that opportunity just to get outside, be active, and having that personal time throughout the day, especially if you're just sitting in front of your computer at home. It's important to take those breaks and schedule them throughout the day to day.
It's funny how much discipline is involved in actually creating a work-life balance, like actually taking a lunch, because sometimes I won't even take one, or like not checking your email. You got to put some discipline into your life in order to do it. So just a reminder to students, if you have any questions for the panelists, just put it in the chat box. Fabian, I have you next. Can you describe your hiring process, like how many interviews you went through, kind of give the students an idea of what you went through to get your job you're at right now?
As I mentioned before, I had a lot of history with the organization, and so they knew me really well. Fortunately, there was only one interview, and probably 2 weeks later, I found out that I had gotten the position.
Great. Laura?
All right. For me, with Fessler Bowman, I would say the first interview was like a 5-minute phone screening, if you will. Then they had me come in and have an interview in person with, I think 1 or 2 people from HR, and then the assistant controller. And then my last interview was with someone else from HR and the assistant controller again. So I ended up having 3 interviews, but it was nice because in between, if I did have an additional question, because I was asking, I could ask it. I didn't have to worry and things of that nature.
Kylie?
Yeah, so I started my interview process for the position that I'm in back when I started at the company 3 years ago. I've been fortunate enough that since then, my promotions have just been natural progression where I haven't necessarily had to interview for them. So it's been a while since I have had a formal interview. I would say, thinking back, I believe that I had an initial phone screen with a recruiter on my team. Was invited for an in-person interview to meet with my supervisor for roughly around a half hour, and then was invited back for a third and final interview with the director and executive of our HR department.
Thank you. Fabian, what kind of technical knowledge is required for your job?
You have to be familiar with all of Microsoft Office. I've had to become more familiar with Teams and any like software that enables virtual meetings and or virtually event planning. I've also had to become familiar with donor management software, where we keep records of all of our donors, their addresses and everything, so that we can contact them and keep them updated on various events. I've even had to become familiar with Canva in order to create marketing materials and just be aware of different things that are out there that would help me pitch our mission to this community.
Great, thank you. Laura?
First, I would say a strong understanding of your debits and credits, because it does involve posting things to ledger, reviewing the ledger, things like that, and you have to understand what the end result should look like. When it comes to software, Microsoft Office as well, and Excel is a big deal. I remember at Lewis and Off, one of my colleagues, we were on an audit and she told them, "I'm sorry, but I'm kind of an Excel snob. I don't want this in PDF. Can you please give it to me in Excel?" And we all laughed, but it's true. And in my job now, I've had to look at reports and things. I'm like, if it can be in Excel, we're gonna try it, because it saves so much time. And not being afraid to dive in Excel, Google, how do I do this? How do I use that subtotal feature or use a pivot table? Once you get it, it's not that scary.
Kylie?
I would say technical skills, there aren't a ton that come to mind, especially when getting started. I think the basic Word and Office is super important. Once I got started in my role, though, I found myself growing and expanding my skill set. I started learning InDesign. I helped to design company newsletters and communications. There's also just a ton of different programs that I work in on a day-to-day basis, such as our HRIS system, where we hold employee data and information, different payroll systems, working with different benefit provider systems. So after diving into the role, I would say that technical skill set definitely broadened, but going into it, I think just some of the basic coursework and programs that I utilize, like while on campus and while completing my degree, were just fine to get me started within the professional world.
Thank you. We have a question from Madeline. Let's see. What made you want to go into your major that you chose? Fabian?
Research. I had research that the supply chain management market was going to be growing. And as we can see, there's been a lot of difficulties in supply chain management. So research.
Laura?
Honestly, the first thing that got me in accounting was when I was in middle school. One of my older cousins lived in Colorado and was doing well and had an office job. And my dad told me she was a CPA and all this kind of stuff. So I took the accounting course in high school just to see if I even liked it, just to kind of get my feet wet. And that led to me doing my senior exit on that and doing a day on the job during my senior year. And thankfully, I liked it after I got into college too. But if I hadn't had all those connections or opportunities to see what it was about, it would have been pretty scary to just pick a major after senior year.
Thank you. Kylie?
I always thought that I wanted to go into social work, actually. I've always enjoyed helping people. I even volunteered at a nonprofit organization while in high school and even into the beginning of my college years, and really loved that, but thought deep down long-term, was this going to be the best fit or provide me with the most fulfilling role that I would be satisfied with over time, and ultimately found out that it wasn't the best fit for me. I also really enjoyed being strategic and kind of business-minded as well, and coupling those two things together, HR kind of just fell in my lap, and the light bulb went off one day where I'm able to work with people and help them on a day-to-day basis, but then also to having that business element as well.
Thank you. Laura, I have a question for you from Hussein. What books would you recommend studying for the CPA exam?
You know, I use Becker. And their software is expensive, and I waited until after I graduated, and assuming that my new employer would pay for them, and they did. So, and it lasts for 18 months. I was able to get an extension for the one section I didn't pass within that 18 months, thankfully. But it doesn't only have the books for each, but there's lessons for each one. I think each week it's like a 14-hour study plan for if let's say the FAR financial accounting and reporting exam was 10 lessons, they expect you to study like 14 hours a week for it, which is hard when you have a family and when you have life. But in the questions for each week, you can like tag all the ones that you had problems with. And I did that. So then I would just have my iPad on the go, and I would just redo all the questions I was struggling with, so that before I moved on, I felt more confident. And so I did dabble in, I think it's one called Ninja. I can't remember the name, but I preferred Becker. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Sydney, I'm going to call you out if you feel comfortable getting on camera and kind of explaining your question so I don't ask the wrong one.
So basically, mine is when you guys were in school for like the School of Management, using the resources that the School of Management offers, like reviewing cover letters and helping people with their resume, and also preparing for like the interviews. Would you guys most definitely use that as a resource to help you feel more confident in the with like meeting with like different companies and going through the interview process for being a prospective employee at a company?
Thanks, Sydney. So Fabian, did you use any school of management resources when you were here for like prepping for a career? And maybe you worked with Antonio, Justin Skiven is on our call right now. He's our career development manager, by the way, for any students that may need help with resumes and interviewing. Go ahead, Fabian.
I absolutely worked with Antonio Riggs. He constantly sends out information as it relates to jobs and resume building, and just I think that everybody in the School of Management also makes themselves available to talk through things as well, as opposed to just emailing back and forth. I would also, being in the School of Management is an opportunity to connect with people who are in HR also. So for me, I sent my resume to a lot of my peers who were working in HR, because they're seeing the resumes on a regular basis, and they were able to give me tips on what stands out professionally.
Nice. So a follow-up question, did you use any professors as resources?
I did not, unfortunately. And that's not because I didn't feel comfortable. Like I said, they definitely make themselves available. I depended more on my peers, probably because it was in a virtual format anyway, my education.
Thank you. Laura?
Yes, Antonio Riggs was a great resource for me. He sent me several jobs over the years. I can't remember which class I took that really detailed out the resume. I don't know if it was business management. I can't remember actually, but the follow-up question, I did use accounting, the professors as a resource when it came to knowing which classes I needed for the CPA exam. I was kind of running into a dead end with the advisors, if you will. So my professor was able to direct me down the right road of what to do.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, I definitely found myself on campus quite a bit, having different conversations with people. I can't explicitly remember utilizing any resources in terms of attending different events or whatnot in regards to the cover letter or resume, but having conversations, before or after class, or even in Jerry's office, talking to Antonio, talking to peers. I think just having that network right there on campus in the School of Management through conversation was enough for me to get some information and just get some different opinions and perspectives from other people.
Thank you. Fabian, has technology changed your job, and what changes do you see in the future? You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Actually, if you don't mind, Laura was raising her hand to wrap up that last
You
question.
saw that? Thanks. Just gonna say that I also used one of my professors as a resource for my referral on my resume, and I've connected with her throughout the years, and she's been a great encouragement for me since I've been out of college. So thank you.
Sorry about that, Laura.
You're good.
And then Anna, can you remind me of what the question was?
Yeah. What has technology changed your job, and what changes do you see in the future?
Things are starting to balance out, actually. There are a lot of virtual events, a lot of virtual fundraising events, which is a lot more difficult of a sale when people can't interact in person. However, things are starting to balance out a little bit more. However, but I know that being well-versed in hosting a virtual event, marketing a virtual event, developing price points for a virtual event are things that I have to be prepared for.
Thank you, Fabian. Laura?
Absolutely, I'd say that technology has changed the job, and I think accounting as a whole, so many business owners can just get on QuickBooks Online and see that they can automate things and do things themselves, but a lot of times they don't always have the understanding behind the end result and what needs to happen, or the tax law. So I think the CPA as an advisor has been more of a push rather than just a number pusher. But in my role, it's just changed. The types of tasks I have to do would take an immense amount of time if technology wasn't there to help, or Excel there to add up things. So I think it's just going to move further in that direction.
Thank you. Kylie?
Yeah, I feel like technology has changed pretty significantly, and impacted my role even before we started our call today, just talking through what does the working environment look like. Are you working online? Are you working in the office? Are you hybrid? Doing virtual interviews is another element to that as well. Having virtual meetings, really just the day-to-day ops of a business, I feel like have changed pretty significantly, and utilizing a bunch of different tools, whether it be Zoom or other meeting platforms, to stay connected. Also keeping a company culture alive virtually is another interesting conversation to have as well. And how do you do that with technology? Are you hosting virtual events or opportunities, outside of working hours, or ways for people to connect as well? So it's definitely something that I'm having conversations about every day, and has really impacted, I think, the entire working world, and how technology can play a role in it. Absolutely.
Thank you. Fabian, do you have any books you recommend for professional growth?
Yes, I didn't know this question was on here.
It came to mind with, yeah, it's not on the list, sorry.
Rhinoceros Success is one book that I've been reading lately. So I would recommend this one.
Thank you. Laura?
This question was not on the list.
I know.
And I enjoy reading. I read a lot, but it's not often about my field of work. It's about other self-growth areas. But there is a book here that Fessler Bowman has, or that they push, and it's called "What the Heck is EOS?" I don't have it on me, so I can't think of the author's name, but it's interesting because it goes over operations management and just getting everyone in your organization on the same page with vision, and how are we going to reach that. And yeah, it's amazing. I've only read probably 7 of the chapters, but it has companion book as well, which I don't remember the name of. But that's all I have for that question.
Thanks. Kylie?
Yeah, similar to Laura, I also really enjoy reading, but I find myself reading for pleasure and never really on the topic of HR when I'm unplugged. So I would say, I know I mentioned earlier the book Switch. I don't know if it's still a part of the curriculum of the change management course. I know it might not necessarily be applicable to every single field in terms of being relevant, but just change in general, I think is something that we all go throughout our lives, and just being able to understand and process that, whether it be a personal life change, a professional type of change as well. I just really find myself going back to that book pretty frequently.
Thank you. Okay, well, I have one more question and then I'll let you guys give some final advice. But Fabian, what do you like best about your job?
I love that my job is devoted to bringing resources to youth, and specifically youth in Flint and Genesee County. As I mentioned, as Anna actually mentioned previously, I'm a native of Flint. I grew up in these communities, and had it not been for programs like Flint Strive or the Upper Bound program, I wouldn't have been aware of the opportunities that are available to me, just because my sphere was so limited growing up in neighborhoods in Flint, unfortunately. So I love that it's dedicated to serving youth.
Thank you. Laura?
I would say my favorite thing about this job is that the work-life balance is where I need it. And leaving public accounting, I had tax season, and tax season is it's busy and it's stressful. And although the firms do a wonderful job of making it fun Fridays, marshmallow wars, all that cool stuff, you're still working a lot of hours. So I love that here. My deadlines are weekly or monthly so far, or quarterly, of course, with payroll, and annually. But it's something that's manageable, and it has not been overwhelming. And everyone here has been great as far as kind personalities, open to learn new ways to things, how to make things faster. Change is like a good thing. And so it's not intimidating to offer a different way or a new way to try a task. So I love that because it makes me feel empowered.
Yeah. Thanks. Kylie?
I would say the favorite part of my role is helping people to grow within their careers. I actually just earlier today did an exit interview for someone who was leaving the organization after a year or two. But I was actually someone who recruited them on LinkedIn, and they personally thanked me at the end of the call saying, you know, it's bittersweet to be leaving the company. She's ended up moving a completely different direction in her career, but gave me a personal thank you for taking a chance on her, or really having the confidence in her work and in her skill set. So that's always really rewarding. Also seeing people grow within the organization and be able to present them with promotional opportunities to continue to climb the ladder and in their personal career path is also something that I find really fulfilling as well.
Thank you. If anyone's interested in what the heck is EOS, Laura put it in the chat. So, okay, Fabian, any final advice for our students?
Let's spin the block real fast. Let me think of something.
Laura.
All right. Well, I would say believe in yourself. You're the only one that can set limits for what you're going to do. Don't settle for something you're not enjoying. If you're going to just not feel fulfilled, that's very important. And if you fall down, just get right back up. If you don't pass that exam the first time, that's okay. Try again, and just be your biggest cheerleader.
Kylie?
I would say just stay connected, especially with your peers as you're going through your courses and completing your degree, whether that be some of just like the general business courses, but more specifically the major courses that are really focused in what you're studying. There are a handful of people that I am connected with on LinkedIn or on other social media platforms where I might not necessarily be the best of friends with them, but I'm able to see what they're doing and what paths that they're taking. And it's always interesting to continue to have conversations with them on the side. And you can utilize them as we're talking about networks, as resources, even the professors too. I think those are really great opportunities to continue to move upwards within your career, or just have some of those peers. You never know where those connections can take you.
Thank you. Ready, Fabian?
Yes, I'll piggyback off of Kylie actually, as it relates to staying connected. I know that not everyone is in the Flint area. A lot of you are, studying from even different states, maybe even different countries. And I would just encourage you to join a Chamber of Commerce. There are so many networks within your Chamber of Commerce that lead to a lot of different things, whether it's jobs, or just opportunities to be active in your community, to be seen. I think that that's amazing. And I want to reemphasize the work-life balance advice of shutting off that computer or those notifications when you are off the clock. Even if you want to dedicate a couple hours of your personal time to it, make sure it's only that couple of hours and really devote time to yourself and your family.
Great, thank you. Well, that concludes our career panel. Thank you, Fabian, Laura, and Kylie for being our panelists today, giving great advice. I'd like to thank the students for attending and asking questions. I wanted to let you guys know that tomorrow at the School of Management, there's Inside the Industry Career Fair from 3 to 6. So I'll give you a shout out on that. And then there's a student alumni LinkedIn group on our LinkedIn company page where we're trying to encourage students and alumni to interact with each other more for mentorships, internships, and maybe just questions that students might have for alumni. So feel free to look for that post as well. So thank you guys.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having us.